What is up, guys, and welcome back to a new episode here with some Pod Limit Oma content on my YouTube channel. Jumping straight into the action today, I'm reviewing a session that I recently played on GG Poker. This is a pre-recorded session. Gonna jump deeper into some of the situations where I have an open question or where I'm unsure about. Also going to show you how I like to review hands using PLO Trainer, which is the tool that I use to become better and improve my game. Guys, if you like this content, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and also check out PLOmastermind.com if you want to learn more about Pod Limit Oma. Table number 1, open raising Queen Jack 8-7 single. Pretty standard in my book, I would say. We have connectivity. Yes, we have 2 gaps, but we also have the queen high suit. We're on the button. So I think open raising is completely fine. Now on the flop, we have a pair, a gutter, and 1 heart. I like a bet a bit more. We don't have a super high equity hand, but we do have several components going on to give ourselves a better chance, basically, to take down the pot. We have a pair blocker, we have a heart, we have a gutter. All the 4 cards are sort of connected around the 3 cards on the board. So I like a bet, and my opponent makes the fold, and we take down that pot. Table number 1, ISO raising against the limper. I think this is okay, unless the players on my left are super loose and or aggressive. But in this situation, I think it's fine. Pretty straightforward bet. On the flop, I would say, top pair, not flush draw. And on table number 2, this is a little bit interesting, at least, whether this could be a potential 3-bet. I think usually I like to 3-bet if my side cards are a little bit higher. But let's take a look into PLO Trainer to try and understand whether this hand is actually a flat or a 3-bet. I can never imagine this being a fold. We are in middle position, early position open raises. We're using the exact same rake profile as in the recording, basically, and we can see that we're only supposed to call 4.5%, so not very often, and we're 3-betting 5.4%, so a very tight range. And a big reason for that, first of all, is because we face a open raise from under the gun, right? Usually a strong tight range. But secondly, also, we are playing a game where the rake is high, and in that situation, we have to be very tight with our calling range, basically. Let me interrupt you guys for a brief moment and share some exciting news with all of you. Now, if you want to use the exact same preflop solution that I am using in this episode, then make sure to check out our new PLO Trainer Preflop Pass. You can create a free account by clicking on the link below this video, and you will get access to the exact same solution that I'm using in this video. So you can use PLO Trainer completely for free for 4-card PLO and for 5-card PLO and access our 100 big blind small stakes solution. You can train, you can browse, you can study, you can learn all you want about this exact preflop scenario. So if you're interested in that and want to take your game to the next level, then click on the link below this video, create your account, and I will see you inside the PLO Mastermind. Guys, now let's get back into the video. I'm going to use the preflop categories, which you can find if you click on categories on the top right in PLO Trainer. Now the preflop categories are designed to break down all the 270,000 preflop combinations and group hands together with similar characteristics. And that makes studying and understanding patterns a lot more efficient, right? Because it's very difficult to learn exactly how to play 270,000 preflop combinations. So what we do is we group hands together and try to find trends and patterns. So if we focus on the first hand class, for example, unpaired double suited hands, we have this 9.51% of the time. We can see in the bar chart that we're folding 72%, calling only 10% of the time, and 3-bet 18%. We're 3-betting to full pot. That is the only sizing and also the recommended sizing to 3-bet with. Now what we can do in PLO Trainer is to zoom further into this hand class. So we have 3 different levels under the preflop categories, and each level breaks down the one above it. So if we click on the small arrow icon, then we can see that below this there are 3 sublevels, either ace high, connected, or disconnected. Now my hand was an ace high unpaired double suited hand, so I would focus on the ace high hand class. But if you have, for example, a hand like Jack 10 9 8 double suited, you're looking into a connected hand. Or if your hand is disconnected, you can open up this hand class. Now what you can do is you can click on this small square on the right side and then filter for this exact hand class and see all the combinations that fall within that specific preflop category. Now with the unpaired ace-high double-suited hands, we can see that we are folding 47.7% on top, calling 27.3%, and 3-betting or re-raising 25% of the time. Now by using the syntax bar at the bottom, we can find my specific hand and see how that hand should be played. So I'm going to type in A754, and we can actually see that this specific combination is supposed to be a 3-bet. On the right side, we can see that 98% of the time this hand is a 3-bet, and only 2% of the time a call. Now one thing that I'd like to add is that if I go back to the categories and focus on the ace-high hand class, what I can also do is I can go to level number 3 by clicking on this small arrow again. So once I open this one up, we can now learn more about different types of ace-high unpaired hands. If you have an unpaired double-suited ace-high hand that is connected and Broadway, then we are 3-betting 63% of the time. Now if we are connected but non-Broadway, that was where my hand falls into, we're only 3-betting 29%. So if you have more additional high cards in your hand, more Broadway cards specifically, it's more likely that you actually are supposed to 3-bet. So if I now filter for this specific hand class with the low connected side cards, we can see on the right side all the variations that we are supposed to 3-bet with. For example, ace 10 9 8 double suited. Also a hand like ace 9 8 7 double suited. Ace 7 6 5 double suited. So very strongly connected side cards make you want to 3-bet. Now if your hand becomes a little bit more disconnected or the side cards become lower, you're actually supposed to call. For example, ace 6 5 4 double suited is a call. But also ace 10 8 6 is supposed to be a call. Ace Jack 9 7 with multiple gaps is supposed to be a call. So by looking into these different hand classes this way, you can start to recognize patterns and understand a lot better how to perform and how to play next time you're in this exact situation. Now let's go back into the action. We now know that at least the GTO answer is to 3-bet most likely. I decided to make the call. Don't think it's a huge mistake, but something to keep in mind there. On the flop, we have a pretty straightforward fold against the bet. And on the left, not sure why I'm thinking about that, but it's definitely a fold. Ace, king, jack, deuce, double suited on the right side. Beautiful looking hand, definitely an open raise from every position and also a hand that can be a 3-bet in several situations. Let's see what happens. We take it down pre-flop. And ace, king, 9, 5, single. I will defend this hand, I would say, against a single raise. We have definitely enough connectivity there, as well as the ace-high suit, which is good. We flop top 2 pair. No backdoor flush draw. Not a hand to check raise with, I would say, on the flop. I think check calling is the play, and we basically take it from there. A blank turn, although the backdoor hearts come in. The good thing is that I do have 1 heart, making it a little bit less likely my opponent actually has picked up equity on the turn, so that's good. I think we're still going to check call and basically decide what to do on the river. River is the jack. A little bit tricky now. We do block ace, ace, and king, king. What do we do against a big bet? What do we do against a big bet here? Well, there are a couple of things to consider, right? Like, first of all, like, how likely is it that my opponent is bluffing based on the hand that I'm holding and based on what happened so far in the hand? What is my opponent representing after betting flop and turn and now barreling the river? My opponent can definitely bet flop and turn with like aces or kings, especially if he has like a 10 or a queen. And now boats up. He can also bet ace jack with a straight, for example, flop turn and now barrels the river. He can bet like a hand like king, queen, jack sometimes, potentially, especially if he turns hard. Or if he has a hand like queen, queen in there, he bets flop and turn. Now a hand like queen, queen or 10-10, if you would turn that into a bluff on the flop and on the turn, it will probably have like an ace or a king on the river, because otherwise it's a very, very ambitious bluff, I would say, by just bluffing your bear, queen, queen, and 10-10. Now in my shoes, what should I consider here? Well, I will definitely arrive on the river with hands that are better than mine, right? I will arrive on the river with some boats, because I will check call on the flop and on the turn. Hands like ace jack, king jack, some jack jack, some king king, maybe some jack 8 even that I turn. So I will have boats on the river. I will also have some straights, but not a lot, because very often I will check raise a straight either on the flop or on the turn. Now trips, I will have some trips and therefore have a decent blocker to my opponent's boats. But I think what makes a lot of sense here is that my opponent's most likely value is aces or kings. And we do block both of them. So I actually think that calling down here is reasonable. Although we have to consider that people usually don't triple barrel bluff as often, I would say. I'm going to tank for a little bit and eventually I decide to make the fold. Anyway. Let's keep going, guys. Let's keep going. On the left side, ace, king, 9, deuce. Pretty straightforward fold against an under the gun raise. And on the right side, ace, king, 9, 5, single. I would say this is an okay call, given that the button seems to be pretty loose. Almost V-pipping 80%. Usually, these types of hands are going to be a fold because we're so disconnected. But once you play against someone who is most likely making a lot of post-flop mistakes or playing way too many hands pre-flop, the value of your hand definitely increases a bit and you can get away by becoming a little bit wider, basically. Anyway, this is a decent board for my range. 6-6-3, turn is the 8. I'm from the big blind, so I have like a lot of connectivity there. I don't have any showdown value. I do have some equity. My opponent bets half pot as a delay on a pretty dynamic board, even though it's paired. I decided to go for a check raise bluff. And I'm taking it down. My opponent folds. On the left side, I'm not entirely sure what happened. Might be a limp or a min raise pre-flop. I think it was a min raise pre-flop, actually. Defending against a min raise with this hand is probably okay. It's not a great spot, but the price is so good that it's whatever. He checks the flop, and on the turn, I definitely want to bet. I have very marginal showdown value with a deuce, but I have equity, and the board is decent for my big blind range. So I bet. River is not great. The ace, I think actually that I don't love my river bet too much. My opponent can easily have an ace that now trips up and is not going to fold. Even though he checks back the flop, reducing a lot of the ace access in his range, I'm not sure. I think it's still a bit close there, or a bit too loose, basically. So on the right side, ace-7, 3 deuce. This is too loose of an open raise. I don't like this, especially with the small blind in there who plays 75% of hands. We're simply not going to get enough fold equity pre-flop to justify this. It's anyway a fold. So we can only open raise this if the blinds would be super tight, for example. Then I think it's okay. Open raising 10-9, 8-6, single on the right side. I would say this is okay. It's not an amazing hand, but the fact that we are strongly connected, I would say, makes it good enough. And we flop bottom 2 pair. On an ace-high board, I'm going to check, first of all, my entire range. Turn is a little bit tricky. We turn 3 pair. We do have the 10. Blocking 10-7. But I think we still want to check. We have showdown value. We don't mind keeping the pot small. Getting closer to showdown. If I bet and get called, I have basically an impossible decision on the river. Turn, I do think we have a pretty straightforward check call. It's very likely we still have the best hand on the turn after my opponent checks back the flop. And he will not have a lot of like 7-5, 10-7 in his range, I would say. And on the river, blocking the straight, I decided to look him up. My opponent has like a random jack 10-4 3 single. And unfortunately we lose. Table number 1, I am checking back with a gutter and a 9 high flush draw after ISO raising. I think this is okay. If I bet and get check raised, it's not great. We are in a very tricky spot. Now we're not gonna get check raised very often, I would say, but still checking back a hand like this, I think makes a lot of sense. Flop check, check, turn check, check after I have a straight flush. And my opponent folds on the river after I raise. So let's see. Table number 1, 10-10 3 deuce, easy fold in the big blind. Nothing really that we can do. And queen jack 10 deuce single on table number 1. I want to see myself open raising. 3 Broadway cards. That's a heuristic, guys. 3 Broadways on the button. You want to open raise pretty much always, unless you have a very strong read on your opponents. King queen 6-3 double, too weak. We're just gonna let it go. And jack 8-6-5 double is an interesting hand. It's one of those hands where you occasionally want to 3-bet bluff it, but not against tight ranges. I would say it's too weak, and it's also too marginal to squeeze. Open raising ace 10 7-3 double, pretty standard on the left. Jack 7-7 deuce single on the left. Open raising against a super tight big blind. Super exploitative, but it's okay once people start to folding so often in the big blind. And ace king 9 deuce triple on the right side. I also like to see myself raising with that combination. Gotta let it go on the left. Ace 9 7 6 triple. And on the right side, let's just check. Table number 1, king queen 10 8. This is pretty marginal hand because only the 10 high suit. But against a min raise, in position, tight players in the blinds, can never be super bad, I would say. I'm gonna bet the flop. Half pot, could even go a little bit larger, I would say. And on the right side, ace king 10 6. It's tricky. Could sometimes be a 3-bet bluff. On the left, betting, I think is the way to go. It's not an amazing spot. If we get raised, we probably have to let it go even, because we will very often be up against king king. Sometimes queen queen even. But I think betting with the draws that are out there is still the play. And on the river, we do have a very straightforward check. I think we're up against pocket fives. Yeah, I think my opponent there played it okay. Check call, and then decide on the river. Table number 2, I decide to 3-bet bluff my hand. That's okay, but the thing is that my hand... No, the thing is that my opponent is very likely underfolding against a 3-bet, which will reduce the value of my bluff. So I'm not sure if it's an amazing 3-bet pre-flop. On the river, I think we just have to let it go. I think looking him up as a call is too light. I don't like to raise this specific combination. So let's just fold. Ace jack 6-5 double. I'm gonna play that one for sure. Pretty good looking hand. We get a call by the same guy that we just played a hand against. And on queen queen 9, I'm gonna check back. Table number 2 is a little bit loose. King king 9 deuce. This would be a fold in a lineup where, for example, there are players who do like to 3-bet a lot. I think on this lineup, like, these players don't seem to be super aggro. But still, it's very, very marginal. But we do flop top set, which is pretty good. We're going to get the money in against a pot size bet. And on the left side, I think checking is the play. Although, yeah, we're up against 2 players. I like to check a little bit more, I think. My opponents can also still easily have, for example, king, which we don't block. And on the river, probably just check it. On the right side, we do win a nice pot against Jack 8-8-7. That's a light 3-bet. That's a light 3-bet. And we do take it down. Nice. Definitely want to make a note on that guy. Knowing that this player is capable of 3-betting very wide hands that he should definitely not 3-bet. Ace, queen, 7 deuce double on the left side. I think we're just going to go for a defend. Could be a hand to check raise the flop with. 2 backdoor flush draws, no showdown value. And on the turn, it's a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky. I don't think we want to fold. I think raising is definitely an option. The thing is that he bets fairly large. It's close. It's close. I decided to call the turn, and now on the river, yeah, now on the river I just have to fold, I believe. Unfortunately. Gotta make the fold. Table number 2, top pair, open-ended straight draw, delay c-betting on a blank turn and checking it down on the river, and we do win against pocket 8s. Pretty light call there, I would say, against a delay bet. King, queen, queen, 8. Double on the left, definitely a hand to call. Not a hand to 3-bet with. If we think about what types of double-suited high-paired hand without an ace we are 3-betting, we don't do that very often, basically. It's pretty straightforward. So let me actually take a look into that, guys, because it's fairly common to overvalue your Broadway pairs that are double-suited that don't have an ace. So if we look into the categories again, the pre-flop categories on the top, and I go to the 1-pair double-suited hands that are Broadway, the Broadway pairs, look at this huge difference between having an ace or not having an ace. So if you have an ace with king, king, queen, queen, jack, jack, or 10, 10, and you're double-suited, you're pretty much always 3-betting, 98%. But if you don't have an ace and you only have king, king, or queen, queen, we're only 3-betting 12%. And with jack, jack, and 10, 10, we're only 3-betting 4%. So if we open up this hand class, then on the right side, only the very, very best king, kings that are double suited are strong enough to 3-bet. A hand like king, king, 10, 9, king, king, jack, 9, king, king, 9, 8. And there are only 3 variations of queen, queen that we can 3-bet. Queen, queen, 9, 8 at the bottom. Let me actually filter for it. That would make it easier. There are actually 5. Okay, 5 combinations. Queen, queen, 10, 9. Queen, queen, jack, 10. Queen, queen, 9, 8. Queen, queen, 10, 8. And queen, queen, jack, 9. Those are the 3-bets. And if we have a king, then we are simply always going to make the call. So call pre-flop is correct. The flop is jack 4 deuce. I mean, we can check and bet, I would say. The thing is that we do have 2 backdoor flush draws, the overcards. We have some backdoor straight draw potential, so betting is okay. I could also see a check here, but with 2 backdoor flush draws, I like betting a little bit more. Turn is interesting because it doesn't give me a backdoor flush draw. It actually makes it more likely my opponent picks up equity on the turn. So I like a check because if I bet, first of all, I don't block any of the pairs. And if I get check raised, I'm in a tricky spot. I have to fold, which I don't want to do. River is the queen. I block ace king. I block king 9. And I even also block 9-8. So I think I do have a value bet on the river. And my opponent calls down with jack, jack, 8-3. Now this is interesting because this player decides to check call the flop with top set and 2 backdoor flush draws. To be honest, I think it's not that bad actually. Like, I think it's definitely reasonable, and the reason is because the board is so dry. Jack 4-3. It's not that likely that I'm gonna have like a very strong hand that can continue against the check raise. So slow playing and making sure that you have some top set in your turn range actually makes a lot of sense. So I think it's okay. But usually the majority of your top set hands, you want to start building a pot. You want to check raise. And the reason is because you want to get value from potentially middle or bottom set. And that's where a ton of the value comes from. And you don't want to miss out on that. Also, you want to get value from a draw. Or let's say I have like ace king 3 or king 5-6. Like, all those hands will continue against the check raise, but don't necessarily continue to barrel on the turn and or on the river. So you might miss some value there. Anyway, I do understand it every now and then. As played on the river, check calling is reasonable. He has like he blocks 9-8. He still has a set, of course. Yeah, I think it's reasonable. It's definitely reasonable. I have some king in my range that I turn into a bluff on the river. So I can see that for sure. Taking it down on the right. And we have 10-9-7-5 single in the big blind on table number 1. Checking. And of course, folding against the lead out by the small blind. Couple of folds coming in. Let me know, guys, how the games have been for you recently, whether or not you have been playing a lot. Which formats? Do you play only 4-card PLO? Do you sometimes even play 5-card PLO? Because that game also has increased in popularity a lot. Table number 2, I decide to lead out, which I think is reasonable with my hand. I can also check call, sometimes even check raise. I think a lot is possible with that specific hand. But leading out is not that bad, I would say. King Jack 6-5 will be a fold. And on the left, I like a fold. It's a bit too loose against a 24 VPIP player. And ace, Jack 10 on the right will definitely be an open raise. Could sometimes be a 3-bet bluff against certain players. And on the left side, easy ISO raise against the limp. On the right side, flopping an overpair and a flush draw. And on the left side, we have middle set and a top pair blocker. Pretty straightforward bet. And on the turn, the money will just go in if needed, blocking the jack. Table number 2 is a bit tricky because my opponent leads out very large. We have an overpair and a weak flush draw. I could actually consider to fold on the flop because I'm so non-nutted. I think it's a little bit tight, but not unreasonable against many players. Now on the turn against a large bet, like this basically indicates that this guy is going to barrel off on the river. Very, very likely. Now he will do this with some ace of heart combinations, I would say. Less likely with the king of hearts or the queen of hearts. So the question is, does he have enough bluffs in order to justify continuing? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I don't mind a fold there. I don't mind to take like the more conservative route. Table number 1, 3-betting. King 10-9-7 double against early position. I think this is a good combination to pick from. We have a lot of connectivity. We're double suited. We can call a 4-bet. And on the flop, we're just going to pot it to get it in at SPR 3 against early position and SPR 1.5 against the small blind. And we're up against King, Queen, Jack 10, and we are splitting. Okay, let's do it. While on the right side, King, Queen, Jack 4 single will be a straightforward open raise. Again, guys, the heuristic on the button of open raising 3 Broadway cards, keep that in mind. Usually works. And Jack 9-9 single on the right side. We are 200 big blinds deep. We're 200 big blinds deep. This is a little bit tricky. If we are out of position and we're deeper, we're usually tightening up. And the reason is because post-flop, once you get called, or once you get called pre-flop, then post-flop, your positional disadvantage is a lot larger because now the SPR is higher, right? So more often you're going to play multiple streets out of position, which is a negative for you as the 3-better, because it's a lot more difficult to realize your equity out of position. And therefore, once stacks increases, you're going to 3-bet tighter, and once stacks decreases, you can actually 3-bet wider when you're out of position. Well, let's take a quick look into PLO Trainer. Focus on 200 big blind preflop strategy. We face a cutoff raise, and we're in the big blind. Now, from the big blind, we're only 3-betting 4.9%. You can see this on the top right. Now, if I actually open up another instance where we compare this with a 100 big blind strategy, then you can see that the difference is quite substantial. So here we're 3-betting 6.6% at 100 big blinds. And at 200 big blinds, we're 3-betting 4.9%. So you can see that we become a lot tighter. Now, if we go to the categories and we focus on the 2-pair range at the bottom, we have a 2-pair single suited hand that is connected. We have this one 0.16% of the time. We're still 3-betting 76% of the time. So I would think that Jack-Jack 9-9 single, therefore, is a 3-bet. But let's open up this hand class and let's take a look. This is actually the incorrect hand class. This is actually the incorrect hand class. You can see 9-9-8-8, 8-8-6-6. So we're looking at lower hands. I had to look for this one, which are King-King to 10-10. 61% 3-bet. Let me open that one up. And on the right side, we have all these strong combinations that we're 3-betting. King-King, Queen-Queen, Jack-Jack 10-10, Queen-Queen 9-9, and also Jack-Jack 9-9 single. If we filter for it to make it even clearer, we can see that this is a straightforward 3-bet. And it's also a substantial mistake if you would not 3-bet, I would say, because the EV difference is 0.43. You can see that in the little green information below 0.29. And this basically tells us that 3-betting is 43 big blinds per 100 better than calling in this situation. So we definitely have to make the 3-bet. Now let's see what I did, because I actually can't remember. I decided to, there you go. I decided to check or to call basically, which is too passive. Now on the flop, Jack-Jack 9-9 with a flush draw and some set outs. I mean, just gonna check call. We don't want to do anything else really, I would say. Turn is a flush. We're gonna check and probably check call on the turn. River is not good. River is not good because now the board pairs and my opponent will have plenty of aces in his range. He can have 6-6, he can have ace-3, like all that stuff. He's basically uncapped in his boats. Does he have enough bluffs on the river? I would say it's tricky. Like, I think that a lot of people, if they bluff, they're going to use a larger sizing on the river. And also they don't like to turn like ace-x into a bluff in that situation. So I think folding there is actually okay, but I might be a bit, yeah, I think folding is okay there. We only have a jack-high flush. We don't block any of the pairs. So let's make the fold. On the left, ace 8-8-5. Pretty bad board. We're going to check fold the flop if my opponent bets. Interesting turn. We could bet because my showdown value is very marginal, right, with my 8-8, and we have a pair blocker and a spade blocker. So I actually like betting a bit more and turning my hand immediately into a bluff. I have to be quite confident that my opponent will delay bet because I like a check raise bluff with this hand, but really only if my opponent is actually check raise betting, delay betting with a reasonable frequency. And I'm not sure if that's actually going to happen on the 5 of spades. He did bet, and we do take it down by check raising. So that's good, but maybe I like a delay or a stab myself actually a bit more. Pocket aces on the right side, easy open. And on the left, definitely a loose open with 10-10-6-3. I don't mind the bet on the left with my future blockers, and on the right side, bet or check flop is okay. And now on the turn, Just bet anywhere between like 2/3 pot and 2/3 pot, maybe even pot is okay. Like we unblock the king, we unblock the straight, so I don't mind sizing up. And on the river, we're just potting again. Try to get called by a straight, by king X, by a boat. My opponent actually does make the call. Interesting, he has ace king. So I think if I bet smaller on the river, I'm actually going to get raised, which is a lot better actually for my hand. So, I mean, yeah, I think against a half pot, my opponent will definitely raise. The question is, do I want to bet half pot there? Table number 2, we face a 3-bet, and we're just going to call. The price is too good, and we're double suited. And we flop a pair and a king high flush draw. I think I like a check back. I don't want to bet and get check raised. Would be a little bit tricky. And on the left, I'm gonna go for a open raise with my aces. And on the right, it's a little bit tricky. Do I want to call, fold, or raise? I think raising here is kind of interesting. And the reason is because for this sizing, which it's a bit of an exploitative read, but I don't think that people are actually betting the nut straight for half pot on this board. I also don't think that he has the nut straight very often. He can definitely have the 9 high straight at this point. But the 9 high straight is in a very tricky spot against a pot-sized raise because I'm basically wrapping 10-7. And I will check back some 10-7 on the flop. I will definitely bet a lot of them. But if I don't have backup or a flush draw blocker, I might check back 10-7. So yeah, it's definitely exploitative, loose. Not something that I would do all the time. But I felt like in this situation, I actually had a decent opportunity to do it. Luckily, I river 2-pair, and we can check it down and actually win. And on the left, ace queen jack 4 or ace king queen 4. I think this is a fold, unsuited to the ace. Let's wrap it up for today, guys. Don't forget to create a free account by clicking on the link below and get access to our small stakes PLO solution in PLO Trainer completely for free. Hope to see you on the inside of the PLO Mastermind. Guys, thank you very much for watching. Over and out. This is Luke, and I will catch you in the next one.